Western Michigan's Nadame Tucker is an electrifying and productive sub-package option worth a swing in the middle rounds.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? I am your host, your friend, Ross Jackson, and on today's episode, it's a scouting report show for Western Michigan edge rusher Nadame Tucker. We'll take a look at how a specified role could be seen as limiting, but might not be, and how it is that he could immediately have an impact in New Orleans as a pass rush specialist. We got all that coming up for you on this episode, so let's get into it. Nadame Tucker, I spent a very long time calling him Nadame. Nadame Latrell Tucker, that's what his mama named him. 6'2", 247 pounds. My one-sentence scouting report on him is simple. He'd be a perfect option in the middle rounds as a sub-package linebacker that may never develop into a three-down defensive end, but is worth a swing in those mid-rounds. Now, mentioned here, you'll hear that I just said a sub-package linebacker. I did say that on purpose. You're not going to ask him to drop back into coverage a lot, but one of the things that he actually did pretty well during his 1 year as a starter after transferring away from Houston to Western Michigan is that it actually seemed pretty comfortable dropping back into space. So what that means is that allows you, let's say you're Brandon Staley, New Orleans Saints defensive coordinator, and you now have Nadame Tucker on your team after selecting him in the 4th or 5th round of this year's NFL draft. You have the option to line him up on third downs opposite Chase Young, maybe even along with a little bit of Caden Ellis sprinkled into there, potential blitz coming from the slot or threatening from the slot as well. And then you have the option to be able to either let Nadame Tucker do the thing that he did 14 and a half times over the course of the 2025 collegiate season. That's how many sacks he ended up with by the time it was all done, tied for the nation's lead in that position. Or you can have him drop back into space and know that you don't have a liability on the opposite side of Chase Young, who can now rush the passer along with Caden Ellis, and you can drop in Nadame Tucker, who can handle himself in space in the short areas of the field. It's a pretty good situation for Brandon Staley. It's a pretty good situation for the New Orleans Saints. Now, at 6'2", 247 pounds, he ran a 4.7 340-yard dash, and has some pretty okay explosive measurables, 33.5-inch vertical jump, and then a 9'11" broad jump. But when you watch the tape, the best thing that he does is explode off of the line of scrimmage. They call it get off, how quickly you get off of the line of scrimmage at the snap. Chase Young was remarkable at that very metric last season during the 2025 year. Adding a guy like Nadame Tucker over on the opposite side for 2026, on those third down pass rush specialist opportunities, which is where he would mostly fit in, I would imagine, in Brandon Staley's system, he would be another guy that would be able to get off of the line of scrimmage quickly. He can run the arc very well. He's very athletic, very agile, has some really nice short area quickness, even though his testing numbers don't suggest that, but you can see that all over his tape. The thing about his tape, though, is that you're watching him play against teams like Ball State, and that was probably his best game that he had in his collegiate career, not just in 2025, but his collegiate career, because he spent the previous several years with Houston not seeing any playing time. So he had to transfer away from Houston to Western Michigan to play against lesser competition, where he finally became a full-time starter. So we have to take into account the leap in competition coming to the NFL. Though I will say, he was ridiculously impressive during the Senior Bowl, where he had the challenge of going up against SEC tackles and ACC tackles and Big Ten offensive linemen, so on and so forth. It was that kind of middle of the road test that he needed to pass in order to be a draftable player in this year's NFL draft, because he's going to be 26 come June. So he'll be 26 by the time that the season begins. He is a 1-year starter, and he's somebody that is still very much developing into being a pass rush specialist, not a full 3-down defensive end. Those are things that would typically be knocks against a player. But when you tie for the nation's lead in sacks with 14.5 and add 21 tackles for a loss, also the lead. That's not easy to look past for any team, no matter how old you are, no matter what competition level you played against, and no matter what it is that your specific role is. If you're excelling in that specific role, NFL teams will find the traits that you have that they are willing to look at, work with, and mold. And that's where I would see a Nadame Tucker fitting in for the New Orleans Saints. So coming up next, let's discuss a little bit more about what it would take for the Saints to get him, why he ends up being such a valuable player in this year's draft, and what his final fit might be with the team. We got that coming up for you next as we continue on with the Scouting Report episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers are getting a great way to get in on all of the action as the NBA playoffs are near. We're almost there, almost to the play-ins. Got another night of Pelicans action coming up on Friday tonight. You can check out the Warriors taking on the Lakers, where the Lakers are slightly favored at the time that I'm recording this, and many other matchups as well leading into the eventual play-in and playoffs. Great time to get involved in all of it over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers, if you bet $5 on your first bet, you'll get $200 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet wins. You won't want to miss out on the opportunity there. The app makes it super easy to be able to follow along with all of the action as well, giving you stats, trends, and matchups all in one place, the same place as your bets. So head over to FanDuel.com today to get started. FanDuel, play your game. It's tax time, and for a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes is, well, a lot. Trying to book an appointment that's not the most convenient, sitting in a waiting room with a stack of papers, emailing back and forth and wondering if they actually get your situation. But this year, you just got a major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert and get your documents uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert works to get you every dollar that you deserve, while you get real-time notifications as you go on about your day. It's the relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing that your taxes are being handled right. Head to turbotax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment. Let's get it, Who Dat Nation, continuing on with our scouting report breakdown of Western Michigan edge rusher Nadame Tucker, one of my favorite players in this year's class. And one of the things that I think that he does so incredibly well that has put him on the map beyond just getting after the quarterback is just simply the effort and the motor that he has. Those are things that coaches will always find a way to fall in love with. Nadame Tucker will not be an exception. We appreciate you very much, as always, for being here with us. Don't forget to make us your first listen, your second listen, your third listen of the week as well. Try adding in another episode every week because we're getting closer and closer to the NFL draft, just a couple of Thursdays away. So make sure you're here along for the ride on Locked On Saints, part of the #1 sports podcast network, Locked On Podcast Network. Nadame Tucker, to me, really one of the things that helps him stand out is that motor. He is a relentless effort type of player. He'll run the arc, and then if you as a quarterback step up but don't get the ball out of your hands, don't hold on to the ball for much longer because he's coming back around and he's coming to look for you. That play that Isaiah Stallbird made, what was that, against the Falcons, Kirk Cousins, right, where he basically jumped over the quarterback and then had to turn around and then come back to get the sack. That is the type of play that Nadame Tucker has the motor for constantly. Like, that's the level of effort with which he plays. And that's one of the things that I've always appreciated about Isaiah Stallbird. You put him on the field, he's working his tail off anytime that he's out there. You see the same thing from Nadame Tucker, whether it was as a rotational piece or as a full-time starter with Western Michigan. And so for New Orleans, I think that's something that you can really rely on and love about him. As long as he remains that level of driven, you're going to be able to take advantage of that as a defensive coordinator. You're going to be able to take advantage of that as an edge rusher coach, as a defensive line coach. And so looking at the measurables and things like that, he's in the 65th percentile in both broad jump as well as 40-yard dash, but he's in the 10th percentile when it comes to pass rush size. However, as we know, the size of pass rusher that is typical to the NFL, which is the 6'5", 270 plus pound defensive end, not necessarily the same as the prototype or the notable size or the desired size of an edge rusher that's a stand-up pass rusher. So he kind of fits that second mold, not necessarily that first mold. Now, you're likely to be able to land a player like Nadame Tucker in the 4th or 5th rounds of this year's NFL draft, but because it sounds like teams are going to be very active within the first 4 rounds in terms of trying to move up and ditch those 5th, 6th, and 7th round picks where the pickings are slim towards the end of the draft. They're trying to move up into round 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe early 5. It means that he might be somebody you have to grab in the 4th round because of the uncertainty of him making it over to the 5th round. And again, like the big reason why you're talking about this guy making it to that point in the draft at all, despite having 14.5 sacks, 21 tackles for a loss in one season, right? In this last season, is because that one season was his only season as a starter. And of course, the age, I think, is a big part of it as well. And, the Saints kind of proved last year that, hey, when it comes to age, not necessarily something they're concerned about. Now, quarterbacks tend to play longer than edge rushers, but there are more and more of these defensive linemen that are playing longer and longer tenures and careers. The Calais Campbells, the Khalil Macks, the Cam Jordans of the world, right? So you're seeing all these players at the position or along the defensive line, at least, that are also seeing their careers extend. So maybe looking at a 26-year-old pass rusher and thinking, okay, you can get 10 years potentially of pass rush out of a 4th round or 5th round pick. Yeah, you might take that. Like you might be still willing to take that swing. So that's kind of where, or why rather, his projections are where they are in terms of the NFL draft, less so anything to do with like character, toughness, effort, production, anything like that. Those boxes he checks. It seems it's just kind of like the age and experience box that he doesn't. And of course, that leap of experience playing at a lower level of competition and then coming up to the NFL is a big part of that equation as well. The reason, like kind of the final fit for him that I feel like exists in New Orleans is allowing him to be that specialized sub-package pass rusher while working to develop him as a run stopper. Right now, he doesn't set the edge incredibly well in the run game. And so having him on the field on 1st and 2nd downs is going to be a little complicated. Now, that works well for the Saints, who have Chase Young and Carl Granderson and Chris Rumph and are still developing some guys like Fadil Diggs as well as Miles Cole. And then they also have a guy like Caden Ellis who can come down and play on the line of scrimmage as well. And then you could potentially still bring Cam Jordan back and coexist really well with a Nadame Tucker, who would see a lot of 3rd down sub package or obvious passing down sub package kinds of situations. Now, remember, it's not just 3rd downs, it's 1st and 2nd downs when your opponent is trailing in the 4th quarter, it's those situations as well. And that little bit of ability to be able to drop back and be comfortable in space is very important in this situation. So for this, the big thing that I would look at when it comes to the fit for Nadame Tucker is that it's kind of a 2-step process. You get him in early on in his career, pass rush specialist, and then over the course of time, you try to get him to that 2nd step, which is developing him to maybe take some of those run snaps as well. But for a 4th or a 5th round selection in day 3, getting somebody that could be an effective, productive, and dedicated pass rush specialist in those sub-package, obvious passing down situations, far from a bad situation there. All right, coming up in tomorrow's episode, we're taking a look at some surprise number 8 overall selections, just in case the Saints decide to pull a fast one on you. We'll get to that in tomorrow's show. We appreciate you very much as always. Making us a part of your day, part of your routine for saying yes to me on the show. If you see me, please say hi. And if you need anything else around your New Orleans Saints in between these episodes, make sure you follow me on your favorite social media at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Learn how the family's doing, how you living. Let me know how you momming them. And trust Who Dat Nation. I'll holla at you.